Hi everyone, my name is Kristopher Long, and I'm presenting my term paper for propaganda in autocracies titled "Is Democracy Losing the Propaganda War? A comparison of how closed autocracies frame democracy in state media." I came to this project through reading some punditry that sort of suggested that autocracies were successfully using their large propaganda apparatuses to delegitimize democracy on a global scale. And I thought this was interesting because it contradicts a lot of what political science research which would suggest, which is that most autocracies pretend to be democracies because democracy has been so legitimized all over the world. And so they actually have generally nice things to say about democracy. And so I thought that this gap between what these pundits were seeing and what research would tell us is might possibly because is concerned with um, most research is concerned with electoral autocracies and not closed autocracies. And I thought, well, maybe closed autocracies have a different way of talking about democracy, that's what these pundits are citing. And so my theory was that countries with larger winning coalitions, meaning more people need to support the regime for it to stay afloat, would have to address democracy directly, and that's what this analysis is talking about. Whereas closed regimes with much smaller selectorates actually could just ignore democracy, and they wouldn't have to talk about it. And so to test this, I collected every story published on four state media websites between April 2024 and April 25, and then I used the keywords democracy, human rights, or United States. And then I took a random sample of 10 stories from each subcategory for each country, and then I analyzed them based on different narratives about democracy listed at the third bullet point there. And overall, the hypothesis that small selectorate countries will not critique democracy tended to hold. They didn't have much criticism of democracy, and actually, when they did talk about democracy or human rights, it was generally pretty positive. Um, and then I also found some support for the other part of that hypothesis, which is that larger selectorate autocracies are critiquing democracy, and I found that in China. But I discovered that Laos, which is my other example of a small selectorate country, um, that just doesn't have a strong enough propaganda apparatus to really provide any meaningful results. And then I also had a theory that stronger countries would be more likely to um, critique democracy, but I found that really it was more about which countries they were allied with than government strength. So yeah, thank you.